The wasteland stretched endlessly under a crimson sky, where acid rain had scarred the earth into twisted formations of rust and bone. Marcus Chen had been walking for 3 days, his weathered boots crunching over crystallized sand that once might have been a highway. The former medic carried everything he owned in a patched military backpack: water purification tablets, a solar charger, medical supplies, and memories he wished he could abandon. At 38, Marcus had survived the climate wars, the plague of 31, and the collapse of the Western Coalition. He'd lost his wife Sarah to radiation sickness, his daughter Emma to the fever that swept through the refugee camps. Now he wandered alone, helping scattered survivors when he could, but never staying long enough to form attachments. Attachment meant pain, and he'd had enough of both. The cave mouth appeared like a blessing in the cliff face ahead, a dark sanctuary. From the approaching storm, lightning crackled across the poisoned clouds, and Marcus quickened his pace. He'd learned to read the signs. The storm would bring the burning rain that could strip flesh from bone. As he approached the cave, something made him pause. Smoke. Someone else had claimed this shelter. Marcus drew his pistol, a relic from his military days, and called out in the common tongue. Then in Spanish, then Mandarin. A rustling echoed from within, followed by a sound that made his heart clench, a child's whimper. "I mean no harm," he called, holstering his weapon. "The storm's coming. There's room for all of us." A figure emerged from the shadows, a woman, unlike any he'd seen in the wasteland. Her skin held an otherworldly luminescence, pale as moonlight, but warm as candle flame. Gossamer hair fell past her shoulders, and her eyes held depths that seemed to contain starlight. She wore tattered robes that might once have been white, now stained with earth and time. But it was her wings that marked her as something beyond. Human translucent appendages that folded against her back like broken dreams. Behind her peeked 2 children, a boy of perhaps 8, with his mother's ethereal features but more human proportions, clutched a carved wooden horse. A girl no more than 5 pressed against her mother's leg, thumb in her mouth, watching Marcus with enormous golden eyes. "You are human," the woman said, her voice carrying an accent he couldn't place, something musical and ancient. "Mostly," Marcus replied, showing his empty hands. "You're not." She lifted her chin with tired dignity. "I am Celeste. These are my children, Kai and Luna. We have been here 7 days. The storm hit with fury, driving them deeper into the cave." Marcus lit a chemical flame stick, revealing a surprisingly large cavern. Celeste had made it into a home of sorts, blankets spread on flat stones, a fire pit ringed with rocks, even some attempt at organization. But he could see the signs of desperation: 2 thin children, empty food containers, the mother's hollow cheeks. "When did you last eat?" he asked. Celeste's wings rustled with what might have been embarrassment. "The children ate yesterday. There was enough." Marcus opened his pack and pulled out protein bars, water, and dried fruit. The children's eyes widened, but they looked to their mother for permission. She nodded once, and they fell upon the food with restrained desperation. As the storm raged outside, Marcus found himself studying this strange family. Celeste watched him with wariness born of hard experience. But when Luna's wooden doll lost an arm, she allowed him to repair it with medical tape. When Kai asked about the strange symbols on Marcus's jacket, military patches from a world that no longer existed, she listened as he told sanitized stories of his travels. That night, as the children slept between them, Celeste spoke softly. "You have lost much." It wasn't a question. Marcus stared into the dying fire, feeling wounds he'd thought long healed. Everyone has. Some losses cut deeper than others. Her voice held the weight of understanding. "You have the hands of a healer, but the eyes of someone who could not heal what mattered most." Marcus turned to look at her, this strange woman who saw too much. "And you, where are you running from?" Celeste's wing brushed against the cave wall, and he heard the whisper of old pain. "A world that fears what it does not understand. A place where my children would be caged or killed for the crime of existing." Outside, the storm began to fade, but neither moved to leave. In the warm glow of the cave, surrounded by the soft breathing of sleeping children, Marcus felt something he'd thought dead, the dangerous stirring of hope. 3 weeks passed in the cave, And what began as temporary shelter became something approaching home. Marcus had intended to leave after the storm, but Luna had developed a fever that worried him. His medical training kicked in, and he found himself staying to monitor her condition, then to help Kai recover from an infected cut, then simply because leaving felt wrong. The routine they developed was born of survival, but seasoned with unexpected moments of connection. Marcus would venture out each morning to hunt for food-mutated rabbits that had adapted to the wasteland, edible fungi that grew in the shadow of dead trees, sometimes even fish from the underground streams that fed the cave system. Celeste proved invaluable in identifying which plants were safe, her otherworldly heritage granting her knowledge of the changed world that purely human survivors lacked. "This one," she said, holding up a silver-leafed vine, "will ease pain. But this," she indicated a nearly identical plant, "will stop a heart within minutes." Marcus watched her work, grinding herbs between smooth stones, mixing poultices that seemed to heal faster than any medicine he'd known. "Where did you learn this?" "My people are guardians of growing things," Celeste said carefully, "before the world changed. We tended the spaces between civilization and wild. Now we tend whatever survives." The children had lost their initial shyness around Marcus. Kai followed him on hunting trips, learning to read tracks and set snares. The boy had inherited his mother's grace, but possessed a purely human curiosity about everything. Luna appointed herself Marcus's shadow, chattering in the mixed language of childhood, part English, part whatever tongue Celeste had taught them, part pure invention. It was Luna who first called him Papa Marcus, the words slipping out as naturally as breathing when she scraped her knee, and ran to him for comfort. Celeste had frozen, watching his reaction, but Marcus simply cleaned the wound and kissed it better, the way Sarah had done for Emma so many years ago. That evening, as they shared their meager dinner, Celeste spoke carefully. "The children, they have had no father. Their blood father he was not a good man." Marcus looked up from whittling a new toy for Luna, a bird with spread wings. "You don't owe me explanations." "But I do," she said, her starlight eyes serious. "If you are to stay, if you choose to stay, you should know what you are choosing," she told him then, in halting words, about the man who had taken her by force during the early days of the collapse, how she had escaped when she discovered her pregnancy, how she had hidden in the deep places of the world to bear and raise her children, how the wasteland's dangers were nothing compared to the cruelty she had fled. "They know only what I have taught them of fathers," she said. "They see you as protection, as provision, as is the gentle strength they have never known." Marcus set down his whittling, the wooden bird's wings half-formed. "Celeste, I do not ask lightly," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "but they are good children. And this world is hard. If something happened to me," a sound from the cave mouth cut her off, the scrabble of claws on stone, followed by a low growl that made Marcus's blood freeze. He motioned for silence and reached for his pistol. The cave had several chambers, and something had entered the outer one. The creature that emerged into their firelight was a chimera of the New World, part wolf, part something else, its fur patchy with radiation burns, its eyes glowing with unnatural intelligence. It had clearly been tracking the scent of their food, and now it crouched in the cave mouth, deciding whether they were prey or threat. Marcus stood slowly, placing himself between the beast and the family. "Take the children to the back chamber," he said quietly, but Celeste stepped beside him instead, her wings spreading wide. Light began to emanate from her feathers, not bright, but steady and somehow comforting. The creature paused, confused by this display. "It is hungry," she said, "desperate, like we were." Marcus kept his gun trained on the beast, but found himself listening. What are you suggesting?" "We have extra food tonight. The rabbit you caught was large. You wanted to feed it. I want to show it we are not enemies." What followed was the longest 10 minutes of Marcus's life. Together, they slowly pushed some of their precious meat toward the creature. It snapped it up warily, then sat back on its haunches, watching them with something approaching curiosity, rather than hunger. When it finally loped away into the night, Marcus found his hands shaking with adrenaline. "That was insane, but it worked," Celeste said softly. Sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is show compassion. He looked at her, then really looked at this woman who had chosen mercy over fear, who had trusted him with her children's lives, who saw goodness in a world that had shown her mostly cruelty. The children need a father, she had said. But as Marcus watched Luna sleeping peacefully and Kai dreaming with his wooden horse clutched to his chest, he realized the truth. He needed them just as much. The raiders came at dawn, their vehicles announcing their approach with the growl of engines that hadn't seen proper maintenance in years. Marcus was already awake, tending the fire. When the sound echoed through the canyon, he knew that sound predators on the hunt. Celeste, he whispered urgently, shaking her awake. Take the children to the deep chamber. Now, she sat up instantly, her otherworldly senses already alert to danger. How many? 3 vehicles, maybe 4, could be 12 men, could be 20. Marcus was already moving, checking his weapons, calculating angles and escape routes. There's a crack in the back wall that leads to another cave system. If things go bad, you are not staying here alone. I am. His voice carried the authority of his military years. They'll want to search the cave anyway, if they find us all together. Celeste understood. Raiders had uses for women and children that were worse than death. She gathered Luna and Kai quickly, whispering reassurances even as terror filled her eyes. Come back to us, she said to Marcus. Count on it. The raiders were exactly what Marcus had expected, a mix of deserters, criminals, and broken men who had found purpose in taking from others. Their leader was a mountain of scarred flesh named Kruger, who'd lost an eye to acid rain and replaced it with a crude metal implant that clicked when he blinked. Well, Kruger said, surveying the cave entrance. Someone's made themselves comfortable. Marcus stepped into view, hands visible but ready. Just passing through. Cave's big enough to share, generous of you. Offering to share what ain't yours. Kruger's remaining eye fixed on Marcus's military patches. Coalition, thought we'd wiped out the last of you Boy Scouts. You missed. A few. What followed was a tense negotiation disguised as casual conversation. Marcus knew the game show enough strength to be respected, not enough to be seen as a threat. Let them think he was alone, traveling light, nothing worth the cost of a fight. But these weren't ordinary raiders. They'd been tracking unusual signs, evidence of something non-human in the area. Local settlements had reported strange lights, singing voices, creatures that walked like men but cast no shadows. Funny thing, Kruger mused, examining the cave entrance. We found tracks leading this way, not human tracks, if you catch my meaning. Marcus kept his expression neutral. Lot of things out here aren't human anymore. True enough. But this was different. This was. Kruger leaned closer, his metal eye whirring as it focused. This was valuable. The fight, when it came, was swift and brutal. Marcus had the advantage of position and preparation, but they had numbers. His first shot took down the sniper they'd positioned on the ridge. His second wounded Kruger, but there were too many, and they were spreading out, surrounding him. That's when Celeste appeared. She emerged from the cave like an avenging angel. Her wings spread wide, light blazing from every feather. The raiders stumbled backward. Men who had faced down mutant bears and acid storms suddenly confronted with something beyond their comprehension. She's real, one of them whispered. The angel's real. Kruger raised his rifle, but Marcus was faster. His third shot took the raider leader in the chest, and the man fell backward off the cliff edge, his scream echoing until it cut off with a distant crash. The remaining raiders fled, but not before one of them got a clear look at the cave, at the family Marcus was protecting. They would be back, and they would bring more men. We have to leave, Marcus said, though the words felt like stones in his throat. Celeste nodded, already moving to pack their few possessions. The children were crying not from fear, but from the loss of the only home they remembered. Luna clutched her repaired doll, while Kai helped his mother roll up their blankets with the serious efficiency of a child who had learned too young that everything was temporary. Where will we go? Kai asked. Marcus looked out at the wasteland, then back at this family that had somehow become his world. North. I heard rumors of a settlement in the old Montana territory. People trying to build something new. It's a long way, Celeste said quietly. Yes, but we'll make it. He knelt down to look Luna in the eyes. All of us, together, as they prepared to leave the cave that had been their sanctuary. Marcus felt the weight of his new responsibility. He was no longer a wanderer. He was a protector, a provider, a father to children who needed him to be stronger than he'd ever been. The wooden bird he'd been carving lay forgotten by the dead fire, its wings still unfinished. Luna picked it up as they walked away, and Marcus realized that some things didn't need to be complete to be beautiful. They were a family now, forged in fire and sealed by choice. The wasteland ahead was vast and dangerous, but they would face it together. The abandoned subway tunnel stretched before them like a concrete throat, its walls weeping with decades of neglect and seepage. They had been walking for 6 days since leaving the cave, moving mostly at night to avoid the worst of the wasteland's dangers. The children were exhausted, and Celeste's wings had begun to droop with fatigue. When they discovered the entrance to the old metro system, Marcus made the decision to risk it. The radiation readings are acceptable, he said, checking his ancient Geiger counter, and it gets us out of sight. The tunnel led to a maintenance junction that had become a makeshift way station for travelers. Someone had set up a small camp here, sleeping bags, a portable cook stove, even a few books wrapped in plastic. The walls were covered with messages left by previous occupants, warnings about dangerous routes, news of safe settlements, simple human connection scratched into concrete. Celeste traced one message with her finger: Sarah plus David plus baby Tom. Heading east to the Georgia Gardens, May 2043. If you see this, Mom, we're alive. Do you think they made it? She asked. Marcus didn't answer. In the wasteland, hope was a luxury you couldn't afford to give away carelessly. They made camp in the junction, and for the first time in days, the children laughed. The acoustics of the tunnel turned their voices into music, and Luna discovered she could make the sound echo back in strange, beautiful ways. Even Kai forgot his 8-year-old dignity and joined in, their play filling the concrete space with something approaching joy. That night, as the children slept, Celeste and Marcus sat by their small fire, sharing a can of pre-war peaches that had cost them half their remaining trade goods. Tell me about them, Celeste said softly. Your family, the ones you lost. Marcus had spoken little about his past, but something about the tunnel's intimate darkness made words come easier. He told her about Sarah, who had been a teacher before, the collapse, who could make children laugh even in the refugee camps, about Emma, who had been 6 when the fever took her, who had drawn pictures of flowers that didn't exist anymore. She would have loved Luna, he said, watching the sleeping girl. They both have that same fearlessness about the world, and Kai reminds you of yourself, maybe, or maybe of who I wish I'd been at his age. Celeste was quiet for a long moment. Do you ever wonder if we're being foolish, trying to build something in a world that seems determined to tear everything down every day? Marcus poked at the fire with a metal rod. But what's the alternative? Give up. Let the bastards win. You sound like a soldier. I am a soldier. Was, still am, I suppose. He looked at her across the flames. But I'm other things now too. That's when she asked the question that would change everything. Marcus, Celeste said, her voice barely audible above the distant drip of water. Will you be their father? Not just their protector, not just their provider, their father. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Marcus felt his chest tighten, old fears rising like smoke from buried embers. Celeste, I have watched you with them, she continued, her starlight eyes reflecting the fire. I have seen how you fix Luna's toys without being asked, how you teach Kai to be strong but gentle, how you check on them in the night to make sure they are breathing. You are already their father in every way that matters. It's not that simple, is it not? She leaned forward, her wings rustling softly. What makes a father, Marcus? Blood, law, or choice? Marcus stared into the fire, seeing faces in the flames, Sarah's smile, Emma's laughter, the family he'd failed to save. I've been a father before. I wasn't good enough. You were not given a choice then. The world took that from you. Celeste's voice was gentle but firm. Now you have a choice. We all do. A sound echoed from deeper in the tunnel, footsteps, multiple sets, trying to be quiet. Marcus was on his feet instantly, weapon drawn, but Celeste caught his arm. "Wait," she whispered. The footsteps belonged to a family of travelers, a man, a woman, and teenagers, all of them gaunt with hunger and exhaustion. They carried no weapons Marcus could see, and their eyes held the desperate hope of people who had been walking too long. "Please," the woman said, her voice cracking. "We saw your fire. We have children." Marcus looked at Celeste, then at their own sleeping children, then at the meager supplies they had left. The smart thing would be to send these strangers away. Resources were limited, and charity was a luxury the wasteland rarely afforded. Instead, he holstered his weapon and stepped aside. "There's room," he said, "and we have soup." As they shared their food with the strangers, a family named the Washingtons, who were heading north to find the man's brother, Marcus felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about the kind of world they were trying to build, one choice at a time. Later that night, after the Washingtons had fallen asleep and the tunnel had grown quiet again, Celeste spoke softly. "That is why," she said. "Why what? Why I want you to be their father. Not because you are strong, though you are. Not because you are kind, though you are that too." She reached across the small space between them and touched his hand. "Because you choose to be good, even when it costs you." Marcus looked down at their joined hands, his scarred and weathered, hers pale and luminous in the dying firelight. "What if I fail them?" "Then you fail them as their father, not as a stranger who walked away." In the morning, they would continue their journey north toward a settlement that might not exist, carrying hope that might be foolish. But that night, in the depths of an abandoned tunnel, Marcus Chen chose to be more than a survivor. He chose to be a father. The settlement called Heaven's Rest sprawled across a valley that had once been a strip mall, its buildings a patchwork of salvaged materials and stubborn hope. Solar panels gleamed on rooftops next to gardens that shouldn't have been able to grow in the poisoned soil. Children played in streets that had been cleared of rubble and replanted with hardy grasses. It was exactly what Marcus had dared not hope for, a place where people were building something new. Instead of just surviving, they had been walking for 3 weeks since leaving the tunnel, following rumors and faded road signs through territory that grew gradually less hostile. The air still carried the bite of radiation, but it was weaker here, filtered through forests that were slowly reclaiming the wasteland. Water ran cleaner in the streams, and the wildlife looked more like animals than monsters. The sentry who met them at the settlement's edge was a woman about Marcus's age, with silver hair and laugh lines around her eyes. Her name was Dr. Elena Vasquez, and she had been Heaven's Rest's unofficial leader since its founding 5 years earlier. "We don't turn away families," she said, studying their group with professional interest. "But we all work here. Everyone contributes." "I'm a medic," Marcus said, "military trained, field experience, and I know plants." Celeste added softly, "Growing things, healing things." Dr. Vasquez's eyes widened slightly as she took in Celeste's otherworldly features, but her expression remained welcoming. "We've had refugees from the northern sectors before. People changed by the war. You're all welcome here." The house they were assigned was small but solid, to rooms with real windows and a door that locked from the inside. It had been empty since the previous occupants moved on to join relatives in the eastern territories. Kai and Luna raced through the rooms, their voices echoing with the joy of children who had never had a real home before. "Papa Marcus," Luna called from the bedroom, using the name that had become natural over their journey. "Look, a real bed." Marcus found himself smiling at the title. Over the past weeks, it had stopped feeling strange and started feeling right. He was Papa Marcus now, just as Celeste was Mama to all of them, and they were a family in every way that mattered. That evening, as they shared their first meal in their new home, Dr. Vasquez stopped by with a bottle of homemade wine and a proposition. "We need a clinic," she said without preamble. "I'm getting too old to handle all the medical emergencies on my own, and my hands shake too much for surgery. Would you be interested in the position?" Marcus looked around the table at his family, Celeste glowing softly in the lamplight, Kai already planning where to put his collection of found objects, Luna drawing pictures of flowers on the back of an old map. "We'd like to stay," he said. "If you'll have us, consider it done." Dr. Vasquez raised her glass. To new beginnings. The months that followed were the happiest of Marcus's life. He worked in the clinic, treating everything from radiation burns to childhood fevers to the occasional traumatic injury from construction accidents. Celeste started a garden that quickly became the envy of the settlement. Her otherworldly connection to growing things yielding vegetables that shouldn't have been able to thrive in the altered soil. The children flourished. Kai joined the settlement's school, where he learned alongside other children who had been born into this strange new world. Luna made friends with a girl named Amy, whose parents were engineers working on the water purification system. They played games that would have been impossible before the collapse hide and seek in the ruins of the old world, tag among the solar panels. Imagination games where they were explorers in a land that was simultaneously deadly and magical. It was in the spring, 6 months after their arrival, that Celeste came to Marcus with news that would complete their family. "I am pregnant," she said simply, her hand resting on her still flat belly. Marcus felt the world shift around him, the way it had in the tunnel when she'd asked him to be a father. "Are you sure?" "Very sure," she smiled, and starlight seemed to dance in her eyes. "The baby will be born in winter, when the world is quiet and clean." That night, as they lay in their real bed in their real home, Marcus thought about the journey that had brought them here. From the cave where he'd found a desperate mother and to frightened children, through the wasteland where they'd chosen each other over and over again, to this valley where people were building something worth protecting. "What should we name the baby?" he asked. "Hope," Celeste said without hesitation. "If it's a girl, Hope. If it's a boy, Oliver. It means olive branch, a symbol of peace." Marcus pulled her closer, feeling the miracle of new life growing between them. Outside their window, the settlement slept peacefully under stars that were finally beginning to shine clearly again. Through the clearing atmosphere. In the morning, he would go to the clinic and heal whoever needed healing. Celeste would tend her garden and teach other settlers the secrets of making things grow. Kai would learn and play and slowly become the man his father was teaching him to be. Luna would fill the world with laughter and wonder, the way children had always done. And in the winter, they would welcome a new member to their chosen family, a baby who would grow up in a world that was healing, surrounded by people who had chosen love over fear, hope over despair. Marcus Chen, who had once been a wanderer in the wasteland, closed his eyes and dreamed of the future they were building together, one choice at a time.